My name is Tiffany Spraggins-Payne. You are listening to Zigzag, a weekly podcast discussing women in science, technology, transportation, engineering, entrepreneurship, mathematics, and related industries. On Zigzag, we discuss inclusion and diversity news, current trends, and have special guests speak about their experiences, including their competitive edge in the marketplace. Today, my guest is Krystal J Brumfield. She currently serves as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Airport Minority Advisory Council, AMAC, a nonprofit dedicated to promoting the full participation of minority-owned, women-owned, and disadvantaged business enterprises, also known as MWDBEs, in contracting opportunities and professional development throughout the aviation and aerospace industries. As President and CEO, Krystal works consistently with Congress, the federal government, aviation trade associations, and others, serving as a resource for information, education, and guiding on business and employment matters. Krystal also provides leadership to AMAC's strategic planning process and implements new programming and strategic initiatives. Welcome, Krystal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's about to go down. This is going to be an awesome interview today. So before we jump into the interview with both feet, I would love for you to share with our audience what coalition building means to you.
Sure. So coalition building really means just collaborating with brilliant minds around the same vision and the same mission. And so we partner with organizations such as MBDA and other minority groups such as the U.S. Black Chambers, Hispanic Chamber, and so on and so forth.
And Compto.
And we share office space with Compto. And so we really are pushing forward minority participation, more diverse workforce.
Yes.
That really reflects America today and tomorrow.
This is really exciting. It's really exciting because for our listeners who are just tuning in, we were talking a little bit about the importance of, really shoring up your intellectual tools. We won't really get into that right now.
Okay.
But, I would love for you to tell our audience about, how you landed at AMAC.
Sure. So it was not anything that was really planned. I had a friend from law school who worked for Avis Budget Group at the time. Okay. And Avis, as you know, they have locations at airports.
Yes.
And so Avis is a member of AMAC. And AMAC was going through a transition where their CEO was stepping down. And so they were looking for new leadership. And my friend encouraged me to apply for the position. And so I did, not knowing much about the history of AMAC and how it has been started and the legacy that it actually helps create within the communities. It actually is a wealth creation vehicle. I think the organization is probably one of the best kept secrets in that businesses that are heavily involved in aviation, I think they see a lasting impact not only for themselves and their families, but for those who they actually hire as well to be a part of their organization and their workforce. So it's an exciting place to be. Yes. And I see it has a lot of growth and potential as an organization.
Absolutely. What's interesting is that, I work for USDOT. And so I have a lot of colleagues that work for DOT or elsewhere who have expressed how awesome the AMAC conferences are. You guys just had one in Seattle.
Yes.
So sorry I missed that.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what the vision was for that conference and what the outcome was?
Sure. So the theme for the conference this year was inspiring possibilities because as you guys know, Seattle is the birthplace of many Fortune 500 companies.
Yes.
One being Boeing, another one being Starbucks, Nordstrom's as well. And so because there is an energy in Seattle really about inspiring the next Fortune 100 company, we thought the appropriate thing was inspiring possibilities. Now, Seattle has been going through a transition. They have a new president and CEO, Lance Little, who's been there for the past almost 3 years.
Okay.
And Lance has come in and really pushed forward the agenda of minority inclusion, which the port has historically struggled a little bit in that area.
Yes.
And so having Lance there as a partner to AMAC, I think is really propelling not just the city, but also the state to really utilize more women, more minorities in the aviation and aerospace industries. So we went there with the expectation of really just being a voice for that reason and just shedding some light. And so we've got really good response from the business community, as well as the city and the states. We had Mr. Eddie Rye, who's the father of Angela Rye, the CNN commentator. He actually called me yesterday. It's funny that we now have a relationship. But he was one of the individuals who was very instrumental in making sure the port was held accountable for their minority participation. They've gone through some legal challenges. They've won some, they've lost some, but I think it's at the end, the outcome will be that it is transformative of the atmosphere, the business atmosphere at the port. And so we've had over 40 workshops that we offered during the conference.
Wow.
We've had tracks that range from professional development. So how do I position myself for advancement in my career, all the way to I am a new DBE and I want to know how do I help to build airports of the future. And so you've got training from beginning to intermediate to advanced that we offered at the conference. So we're really excited about the education and training components that we had as a part of the conference this year.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So for you DBEs that are tuning in, I understand that workshop was focused on how to become a DBE, but there's a plethora of resources that AMAC is offering even now beyond the conference.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. So it was an initiative that was really a thought for a really long time, but we've really seen the birth of it since I've become the president and CEO. And so the name of it is the AMAC Academy. And we have monthly webinars, actually twice a month. Every other Thursday, we'll have a webinar on a different topic. And so in the past, the topics have ranged from patents and trademarks. So we've had an attorney from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to come talk to our minority businesses about the importance of intellectual property and protecting their property.
Yes.
We've had an update and recap of the president's tax cuts that were passed at the beginning of the year and how it impacts or really helps your business. It ranges. We're having some training that talks about HR and how do you onboard properly and how do you offboard properly? How do you train your staff and making sure you have the right protocols in place, including an employee handbook that you make sure that each and every employee signs and understands. And so we're providing really the training that sets the foundation to make sure that our members are successful.
Wow. Let me just take that in for a moment. Because everyone who knows me knows that I'm a huge proponent for making sure that our firms not only shore up their business, right, their business acumen, but they really understand how to strategically go about utilizing associations like AMAC. And so with that being said, we're going to jump script a little bit.
Okay.
And you mentioned building relationships, and we started off talking about coalition building.
Sure.
I would love for you to talk about how you set strategy, because since I've learned about AMAC, which was maybe 2 years ago, I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about you and your leadership over at AMAC and how you set strategy.
Sure. So setting strategy, I think really being successful at setting strategy really depends on how you craft the outlook of it.
Yes.
And how do you sell it so that you get buy-in. And also, how do you position yourself to have strategic partners? And so I think we've been successful at that so far. We have strategic partnerships across the country in different areas. We've also, we've identified some sectors where we think there's opportunity for growth. And in doing so, we've kind of positioned ourselves, and I brought on key staff who can help us execute that. And so the key to, I think, executing any strategic plan is to have the players in place. And so I've built a team who can really get us to the next level at that.
Yes.
And so once you have the team and the gears are kind of flowing, then you're able to do almost anything, I think.
A well-oiled machine.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's real cool. I would love for you to talk about your membership base.
Sure.
Tell us
So our membership base are airports. So we represent airports all across the country of different sizes, large hub, small, medium, non-hub airports. We also represent businesses that are in airports. So the airport concession DBEs, as well as the DBEs who help us build our airports.
Yes.
We also have our primes who are members. So for instance, the Hudson Group or Hudson News, people recognize that name.
Yes.
They're members of AMAC, and they partner a joint venture with our minority businesses. We also have a student membership. and an individual membership. If you're someone who's interested in aviation and you really don't have an affiliation with the company yet, but you're interested in becoming an active member, AMAC, we have a place for you as well. So our membership categories range all the way from the big airports to the individual who's just interested in getting involved.
I'm interested. Sign me up.
Come on.
I'm ready. So, with that being said, I would love for you to talk about, future trends that you've identified in the field.
Yeah. So what's exciting is that we're seeing a big growth in biometrics. I'm not sure if you've seen Clear at airports before, where you kind of scan your retina or your two fingertips and then you kind of breeze through the line, right?
Yes.
And so the airlines are doing that as well. We're also seeing automation in a lot of different areas, particularly in food service. And so instead of someone in the back kind of flipping your burger, you actually have a machine that puts together the burger. And so we're seeing that from a standpoint of really making things more seamless and in some cases really saving businesses a whole lot of money. On the converse of that, however, it also eliminates some jobs.
Exactly. I took a deep breath because I was going to say something about that.
And so we're at AMAC. We also have a foundation which focuses on scholarship, internship, and mentorship.
Yes.
And so we're trying to attract individuals into the aviation industry, and we want to also retain them.
Yes.
And so a part of that is not only just getting them in the door, but we have some people who are already in the industry. With these automated processes may actually eliminate their jobs. And so we're trying to figure out ways how to partner with local universities and other organizations such as CompTel so that we can retrain those individuals so that they can be prepared for jobs of tomorrow. We talked a little bit earlier about technology. So cybersecurity is a big thing, but now also drones. But as you probably know, a lot of cities, a lot of countries they're attracting gaming conferences.
Yes.
And so a part of that is really embracing the technology of tomorrow and really equipping our students and our young people to be a part of that new wave of technology.
I agree with that. I was in Pittsburgh maybe about 6 months ago, and there was a huge conference as I was just kind of going through the airport, and I was talking to some of the staff there, and they were talking about robotics and the importance of making sure that our young people are exposed to it early and often.
Yeah.
So that they can really understand, where are we going in terms of forecasting.
Right, yeah.
Not only in transportation, but technology as a whole.
Yeah.
Which is really great.
Yeah. It's exciting.
It's really exciting. So, I would love for you to talk about some, exciting projects that you're working on right now.
So kind of keeping on the front of technology, there's this really cool tool that we've just partnered with this company called Thanks Again to introduce to the industry. It's a tool where you can understand everything about a consumer. It's similar to how Uber tracks my travel and my commute.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, so we're using the data analytics and that Thanks Again is capturing to help airports understand their passenger spending. And so they, for instance, they'll know what my spending is if I drive and I park.
Yes.
When I walk through the concourse to the terminal, they'll understand my spending pattern. They'll also understand the direction in which I take to get there so that they can price or lease out that space competitively. They'll understand what my demographics are, my age, where I live, what my income is, my sex, everything about my household.
Wow.
And so this information, I think, is so valuable so that airports and those concessions that work in airports can creatively market the products that they sell at the airports. Not only that, on my way to the airport, there probably you'll begin to see some stores that kind of pop up because people tend to buy those things while they're on their way to the airport.
Wow, I know it's been fun testing this product out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We did a focus group of current and former airport directors who kind of talked about the advantages and disadvantages of this information and what key information or metrics they needed to see so that they could plan accordingly.
Wow. Generally speaking, because I know you can't really get into the crux of what came out of that focus group, but what would you say were some highlights that you can appreciate coming out of that focus group?
So highlights, I would say, are the big peak times that people spend, probably also what they spend their money on.
Yes.
We know that most people spend their money on water and pillows. And so we want to make sure that when you go in, you have water and pillows to buy. And so we have that. So companies have that in stock so that they don't run out. And so that's one of the interesting things. I've seen a wave, maybe not necessarily through this focus group, but through other conversations and kind of testings in the industry, is that people enjoy seeing or having a sense of place when they travel. And so, for instance, I just left Nashville. So getting off the plane in Nashville, the first thing I saw were guitars. I mean, it's really the country music capital of the world.
Yes.
And so once I step off the airplane, I instantly know there's a sensation of sight, sometimes smell, and things that you hear to let you know and make you aware of where you are. So we see that kind of becoming a phenomenon as you travel through the airport.
Wow. As you were speaking, it just made me think of culture, right? For me, as I've traveled through the airport, particularly, the Philadelphia International Airport, I've never had anything short of a positive experience. But then again, I'm a type A personality, and I prep and I print out all my stuff and I check in. There's a pretty decent process in place. But what you just hit on, which is something fundamentally different than process, which is culture. Could you talk a little bit more about what you've observed, similar to the Nashville experience and other hubs in airports?
Sure. So culture, I think, is a big part of the airport or the travel experience, I should say, because airports we consider ourselves a part of the hospitality, right?
Yes.
And so being hospitable in the South is a really big thing.
Yes.
And when you travel through the South and you hear, for instance, I'm from Louisiana originally.
Yes.
We are in our culture, we love jazz music. Really, we love all sorts of music, right?
Yes.
And so music is a big part of the culture. So you see that. You see remnants of the New Orleans Jazz Fest. You see remnants of the Saints. So you'll see sports teams highlighted in airports, and sports paraphernalia now sold in airports. So it's pretty cool to kind of go and get a flavor of the city that you travel into or through just by stepping into the airport and never really having to leave outside of it and go beyond those doors. So culture is a really big part, I think, of planning, airport planning, to make sure that you get to experience that throughout your travel to your destination.
That's awesome. One of the things I really appreciate about AMAC and what you're doing over there is that you guys have a very diverse membership base. With that being said, I'm sure, like all of us, you're encountering varied personalities, idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
How do you employ emotional intelligence in your work in order to be successful?
Sure. So, like you said, you encounter all types of personalities. In addition to that, you've got to be able to understand, speaking to a large audience, for instance, how do people receive information? So signaling and cues and things of that sort. When you're leading an organization, you really have to be sensitive into not just how you deliver information, but also how you receive information, because people send information differently.
Absolutely.
And so just being a good listener, I think, is very important to being a good leader. So you've got to employ those in your interactions with staff, with members, with stakeholders, because it always changes depending on the dynamic.
I love that. I know we've talked a good amount about AMAC, but I would love to really dig more into who is Krystal Brumfield.
Sure.
And so besides your pedigree, which is a very impressive one, you have a Bachelor's of Science in Accounting, you have a JD, Juris Doctorate, and you also have a Master's in Laws and Taxation. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
And so just on paper, this makes sense, right, for you to pursue all the degrees that you pursued. But how have you fared from not only obtaining those degrees, but in pursuit of those degrees? What was the motivation for obtaining them?
Well, I always knew, since the age of 14, that I wanted to go to law school.
Okay.
So that was an automatic, right?
Yes.
So I went to Southern University in Baton Rouge to get my bachelor's. I first started by majoring in mathematics, but I wanted to figure out really how that translated to the real world.
Yes.
And I couldn't really figure that out. Although now I realize that the opportunities are endless in mathematics. So I switched over to accounting. I kind of married business and math, and I fell into accounting, which was it was just all about business. It's understanding of business. So then after graduating from Southern, I went to law school, also at Southern University Law Center, where I used to volunteer with the Low Income Tax Assistance Program, VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. And so my love and appreciation with working with taxpayers kind of guided me into a career of taxation. So that's how I ended up going to to the University of Florida to get my LLM in tax, which was, awesome. I think, probably one of the best things I could have done.
How so?
Because it was it allowed me to not have limitations and have individuals question whether I was qualified. I had the skill and to show that I was qualified. And so that opened up doors for me to go back to work for the Department of Transportation in Louisiana, working in the sales and use tax division there, which was a lot of fun. We worked on some oil and gas cases, a lot of transportation cases there as well. So that was the beginning of my career, and I don't regret any minute of it.
I'm so glad you don't regret it, because I do think it's the exposure. Sometimes we're headed down a particular path and we think, it's accounting.
Right.
It's a law. And then here you are in transportation.
Right, yeah.
Particularly in aviation and the aerospace.
Right.
So I do want you to talk about how mentors have aided in your process of, your own growth and development.
Sure. Yeah, I think mentors they're so important. They help guide you in areas that you are unsure of, or it's uncharted territory for you or for an individual. So having a mentor who's kind of had some life experiences is always helpful. My mentors, they're different ages, they're different colors, they have different backgrounds. And that's the beauty of it, to always have someone there who you can bounce ideas off of, get suggestions and advice from, and then help to kind of foster and shape the decisions that you make going forward. So mentors have been very instrumental in my professional growth. They've also become like family.
Yes.
I remember meeting one in particular that I always talk about is my Uncle Ron. He's a Jewish guy from New York, and he's
I love it.
He's a lawyer at a firm in D.C., and the way that we met is because I was on a panel and he asked me a bunch of questions.
Wow.
A bunch of questions about procurement that I had no answers to.
Wait, he was on the panel with you or in the audience?
He was in the audience. I was on the panel. It was my first week kind of inheriting the procurement portfolio for the senator, and I was just sent to kind of go sit on this panel. So I'm up there and I'm trying to, I got my little briefing notes. I'm ready trying to answer these questions. And he asked some of the hardest questions I've ever heard. And so I had to get to know who he was.
Yes.
And so I asked, the ladies who were still there who he was and how could I get in touch with him. And they gave me his contact information, and he was the sweetest guy. He let me borrow some books to read. And from that moment, which was about 9 years ago, we have met for lunch or for breakfast every month since.
Wow.
Yeah. He's been one of my biggest supporters, both professionally and personally. And so we've had a long relationship that I think will last a lifetime.
That's incredible. You very rarely find relationships form in that manner. And obviously he thought enough of you then, to ask you all these questions, but then to follow up, which I think is wonderful. So you guys are meeting every month. Is there a particular agenda, or it's just that, because you're in that family stage, he's the cool uncle now?
Right, yeah.
How does that work?
So usually no agenda. We kind of pick up where we left off each month, talking about, family, talking about business, talking about careers, and just kind of really catching up with people in the industry that we've kind of seen over the course of the last month and giving an update on what we're doing, to stay grounded, to stay hungry.
Yes. Relevant.
And to stay focused.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I've had a mentor for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And, we do something similar. She's in Seattle, Washington, working for Amazon right now. And so it's kind of maddening. Right. So I understand. So it's interesting for me to see our mentorship relationship go from me being a teenager to now 2 grown women talking on a regular basis. So it gets real.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I can only imagine, that's really wonderful. I think what's also important about, building relationships is, having professional relationships outside of industry. Talk about how you've been able to leverage professional relationships that you have in other sectors that has also benefited you've benefited from.
Sure. So I think the key really is just fostering a relationship and maintaining it. I think I've been successful at building relationships at every point throughout my education matriculation and through my professional career. And so never losing contact, always updating. Every time I move from maybe an organization to another company, I always update. I have a list of professors, a list of friends, list of colleagues that I update and say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm now at X, Y, and Z. And I also try to, touch base at least once a year. For me, my practice is at the beginning of every year, I always say Happy New Year. And so that's my way of kind of staying connected to people, staying in the back of their minds and letting them know that, I'm also thinking about them.
Yes.
So having relationships, I think, is in different industries is always important because you never know who you may need and who, vice versa, who may need you. And so just having that diversity of relationships is always going to, I think, it's going to benefit you.
I think that's so key because we're in such a fast-paced society nowadays. People just kind of transition unless they've been able to mine, those relationships, go deeper,
right?
Below the surface. I would love for you to share a quote, or maybe there were some moments of inspiration that keeps you grounded,
sure,
so that you can continue to do the things that you love and appreciate.
So, let's see. I'll tell you a really quick story. So I was talking to one of my nephews 2 days ago, and we made a deal that we made a deal this summer. If he made straight A's all through high school, I'd buy him a car.
Can you be my auntie?
Yes. But his first semester, he made 1B.
Oh, wow.
And so his mom was on the phone with his mom, and he didn't want to talk to me, right?
Yes.
And so I said, no, put him on the phone. And I said, well, what happened? Did you try your best?
Yes.
And he said, well, I didn't study for one test. I had an 100 on one test, and then I had a C on the second one. It brought my grade point average down to an 89.
Wow.
And I said, well, you know what? We're going to start over. That's going to be the practice.
Yes.
We're going forward.
Yes.
You've got to make sure that you study. And so I text him this quote that I heard when I was in high school, because I'm a big basketball fan, big Michael Jordan fan. And it was actually a quote that Tim Duncan said, and it is good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is your best. And I told him, never forget that quote. That good is okay.
Yes.
Better is better.
Yes.
But always do your best. Make good better and make better best.
Yes.
So hopefully he remembers that like I did.
How did he receive that quote that you shared with him?
Well, he's a quiet kid. So
Yes.
I think he kind of, like myself, kind of internalizes things and process it internally.
Yes.
So hopefully he was receptive of it. His response to me was, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you guys are in agreement.
We are.
And I think the fact that you provided grace, gentle correction, but then also imparting the confidence to know that there are instances in which you can start over.
Right.
And still meet the agreement.
Absolutely.
Which is important.
Absolutely.
Outstanding. Could you talk about a fear or professional challenge that keeps you up at night?
So a fear, I always fear just not being good enough, which is always why I push to have the education. I push to have those credentials. I push to really exceed and to have an understanding of things that I liked an understanding of. I probably would say that things that keep me up at night, I mean, I read a lot. I don't sleep that much at night anyway, but just a curiosity of things.
Yes.
Keeps me up at night. I keep books by my bed because I'm always like reading and wanting to, be fresh, be on top of things, and just have an understanding of things. So being self-aware,
yes,
is probably what keeps me up at night the most.
I can totally identify with that. My husband says to me, I didn't know we were building a study next to our bed. I didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
And I think this whole notion of being curious, but then also doing something with it, application.
Right.
Is also important.
Right.
And it's very telling in the work that you do that curiosity doesn't go void, which is awesome.
Right. Yeah.
I want you to talk to our audience as if they were in the room. And I want you to talk to them about how, what's some candid advice that you can offer for individuals who are currently in the transportation space those who are looking to transition into the space?
Mm-hmm.
Just some good tidbits that you can offer in general.
So I always encourage people just to do your homework. Like you never want to go into something not knowing much about it. So you got to understand, what it is that's drawing you there. Really understand what your passion is, because the last thing you want to do is do something that you don't enjoy doing.
Yes.
And so I would, take the time to, talk to individuals who are in the space, perhaps even get a mentor who's been there and done that, so that you can have a really clear understanding of what it is that you endeavor to do. Don't be afraid to, go out and just meet people and understand how, part of my job, but part of my personality is to really just go and understand how things operate. So I go to different airports and see what the differences are from airport A to airport B. And I meet with the CEOs and we kind of talk about what they are experiencing and also what their perspective is of the industry, and how do we kind of transition from where we are today to an airport of tomorrow, or from a workforce today to a workforce of tomorrow. So getting perspective and feedback and just an understanding from others' perspectives, I think, is going to be valuable. You'll always have your own perspective, but just understanding the perspective of others is going to be beneficial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. In soliciting feedback and utilizing that feedback to affect change.
Right.
That's massive.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 years from now, what do you most hope to accomplish?
Well, my work is focused around diversity and inclusion. So hopefully, one day this work would no longer be needed.
Yes.
That diversity would no longer be an afterthought. That people would intentionally do it and do it without being required to do so.
Yes.
So that to me is success. That's why I wake up every day. I think I would also say I feel accomplished if, our workforce would reflect that as well.
Yes.
The leadership at airports, it's not very diverse. There are not many women. I think it's probably even fewer minorities. And so when we become an industry and a country that really symbolizes the passengers that pass through the airports,
yes,
I think that is when I would feel like most accomplished.
So success to you is?
Success to me is bringing up the next generation of young professionals who are, eager and hungry and interested in aviation and aerospace. Having my nephew, and I said, why don't you become a pilot? Having them think about flying much, much earlier than I did. My first flight was in college, but have them actually thinking about flying the plane or owning the airline or running the airport. To me, having people behind me, younger people, men and women, to do that is success for me.
Wow. I wish you much success.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. I know it's going to come to fruition because it's already happening, right?
Yes.
So I just want to thank you so much for coming on Zigzag today. For those who are curious about being a part of your movement, with AMAC, and curious about learning more about you and the work that you're doing, not only with AMAC, but just in general in terms of empowering young people.
Sure.
Could you provide what's the best contact information for you?
Best contact information for me is president at AMAC, that's AMAC, -org.com. Again, that's president, PRESIDENT, at AMAC-org.com.
And if folks want to learn more about AMAC,
visit our website at www.amac-org.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Today, our guest was Krystal J Brumfield. She currently serves as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Airport Minority Advisory Council. My name is Tiffany Spraggins-Payne, and I'm signing off.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Martin, the producer and sound engineer for the Grit Studios. If you enjoy our podcasts, the most important thing you can do to support us is share this episode with your family and friends and let us know what you think about it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. Subscribing is 100% free. Don't know how to subscribe? Don't worry about it. There's a video walking you through the process in the show notes below. We will see you next week, and thank you for listening.